what do we do at different points in our life that we're confronted with the mountain, and what do we do from that with what we have up to that point in our life? Hello, everybody. Tom Murphy down here in Pensacola, Florida. Another day in paradise. We're back online with our Men Talking Shop and Life Admin. Want to thank folks for checking in with us since last fall. We've been offline with Life Admin with all of our players on today, but wanted to jump in and give a shot, say hello, back again. As of this morning's count of the 5 episodes we have, we're looking at about 3,756 views that we've had of our 5 episodes since last fall, but wanted to kind of return to you and begin to share. We're looking at today kind of a topic and see what it means to you, but we're going to dig in a little bit with our players. But we're going to look at the whole concept of often what is referred to as bucket lists. And of course, for many, the reference will come from Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson in the movie Bucket List, but certainly came a lot before that. So we're going to kind of take a look at that whole topic, but also bring in, which is our mission, as you may know, of what's that got to do with men in resiliency and coping through life and kind of really being able to manage Life Admin's roller coaster. And we may be able to touch on a couple of things that we've done during that time. So with that in mind, I want to today just give a quick intro. We have our Jim Sparks from Pensacola. Give a wave there, Jim.
Hey, everybody.
There's Jim. He's our tech guy. And we also have Dr. Leo Sandy sitting on a lake in the woods with a fence around it, a 15-foot fence around it in New Hampshire. So no one can get to him with guard dogs all around. So he's very well protected up there for my old friend Leo from the late 1970s. We also have Tom Panas, a friend through the decades that Massachusetts, New York City, and then at which point a new resident of Connecticut. So he's bouncing around here a little bit, but I checked his blood pressure and seems to be much more settled these days with his life and there in Connecticut. And then we also have Mike Farrenkopf down below. Give a wave there. And if you see in the background, Mike is what appears to be in a family van parked someplace in Colorado. We don't want to get into the details of that. The police may come to the window and ask for his license. So again, just be prepared. We can roll with it is on Men Talk Shop a bit. Mike, being one of our old friends, was my physical therapist in Pensacola, Florida in 2019. So with that in mind, I want to kind of throw this out, and I'll kind of preface it and segue a bit of, I'm throwing out this topic a bit because people may or may not know that, and we're looking at May of 2022 at this point of the recording, that I've come across another new challenge of my 3rd time with cancer. And this time it's a very strange, unusual one. Never would have ever predicted it. Was not of the type of the first 2. So we and the missus, and we're kind of caught off guard, to say the least, with all of this. We've jumped in with a couple of weeks of a wild and crazy provider analysis, diagnostics, imaging, etc., along those lines. So we're I'm really in a new phase here. And of course, this whole thing of bucket list comes up. Well, what did you do in life? And was it enough? And should I have done this? And could I have done that? I've kind of passed some of that. But there is this piece, what could I do? What should I do at this point before whatever happens in life? And doing some deep dive, as we like to say on Men Talking Shop, about that. So with that, I would love to pull in Tom, our friend Tom Panas over there in Connecticut. And Tom, when you've kind of heard this topic and had some of this confrontations with this in your life, I know you and I also had a connection from a couple of decades ago when you had cancer and rose above it, got out of it. Obviously, you're alive and well and kicking butt there in Connecticut. But with that in mind, Tom, what does this kind of mean to you of this piece of getting beyond, getting into these challenges, knocking you against the wall, and then what did you kind of do with it over the years? And at this point, how do you deal with when you're getting hit with kind of pretty big, heavy stuff over the last couple of years?
Well, I think for me, the key value is persistence. And I may have mentioned this before here, Tom. I don't remember, but a key, I guess, influence in my life when I was growing up was when I had a paper route. I don't know if some of the young people know what that is, but in the days way before electronic.
This was, yeah, we're not even in paper world now, so you're going to have to explain that one,
No, really, a truck, there was only newspapers, and there was nothing electronic, so paper boys would have a big canvas bag and go from house to house and deliver them. And I absolutely loved it. I loved being outside and so forth. But what's my point? I remember when there were some heavy snowstorms and inclement weather, I'd be drenched and cold and tired, but I'd keep walking, just one foot in front of the other. Sometimes I'd look around at the snow, I'd feel bad, but I just kept walking. And I think, although I never defined it, well, this is my principle, I think that's like when I did have that time, Tom,
Right.
and everybody, prostate cancer, divorce, foreclosure, being broke all at once. I didn't pray. I didn't set goals. I just kept going.
Right.
Even when things, I remember one time, for instance, my car was repossessed. Who among us expects that you're going to have a car repossessed? I mean, theoretically,
Right.
middle-class individuals. And I remember I was staying in the stupid YMCA, filthy, horrible, and I had to get up at 5 a.m. to just dump, leave the keys in the car. And I called up the car repossessed, and they started giving me a hard time. Well, you can't leave it there. I said, F you, I'm losing this car. You come and get it if you want it. It's up to you. So in conclusion to your question, Tom, I think just putting one foot in front of the other.
Well, and since we've known each other, and when you bring this up, I'm laughing because, we did a piece of that together, but you didn't include the piece about the repossession. Just a minute. No, this is my house. Excuse me. It's paid for. No, I think you're looking for the neighbor. Okay, thank you very much. It's just, these people at the door, Tom. Anyway, so, and the thing about one foot in front of the other and that piece, always kind of stuck with me, Tom, on that, especially when we often kind of look at this piece of, well, just do family, faith, and friends. That is the three-legged stool of resiliency, and that's what one needs in order to be. And I'm thinking, well, if I haven't got two of those, is my stool going to fall over if I'm only using one? Anyways, Leo, my friend up there in the north, in damn Yankee land, Leo, what are you thinking about? I know you did some thoughts about this, but kind of what are you thinking about this whole thing of a bucket list? What do we do at this time? The shoulda, couldas, but what's kind of going through that great mind of yours?
Well, I was in the Cuban Missile Blockade, and I just found out that the U-boat had been ordered to fire nuclear torpedoes on our aircraft carriers. There were 5 aircraft carriers there, and this U-boat commander, one of the U-boat commanders, Vasily Alexandrovich Akapov, was one of the main officers, and he, in order to fire those torpedoes, they had to have 3 votes. This was an order from the Kremlin to fire those torpedoes, but they had to have 3 votes from the highest ranking officers on the U-boat. 2 voted to fire them, and Alexander Vasily ordered. He said no, and so they couldn't do it, and so they had to go back to Moscow. And he was told that he should have gone down with his ship, like a good Russian officer.
Duke, is there any way we can reach out to him right now, bring him online? I'm just, I'm thinking he's maybe in Denver at this point in a condo. Mike could maybe go over and visit him on that, but I mean, the scenario that you present is just, I mean, you talk about existential life or death.
He was he's called the man who saved the world.
Yep, and I got that piece that you would send to that.
He was later promoted to admiral, and he became in charge of the West Point of Russia. And he
You
died.
talked about that. Well,
He died a few years ago. Although he was condemned at the beginning, they realized that he saved the world, and he became a national hero long after the fact.
do you ever at this point, Leo, with all of the things along, your illustrious life in career of, okay, now you've got lesser time than you did a few decades ago, and you have done pretty much, in many ways, most everything that you wanted to do, but you're still doing stuff, and obviously, and you're out there, you're doing the type thing. But is at any point where late at night or going to bed, whatever, you're just getting, thinking, okay, this is what I need to do to dig into. I want to be able to do the following over the next X amount of period of time. Today, tomorrow, next week, next year.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of maintenance more than anything else. I'd still like to keep riding my horse. I'd still like to be doing Zumba, still like to be lifting weights at the Y, taking 2-mile walks. Those things are getting harder to do. But the question is, how long can I do them? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to keep doing them.
You're gonna keep doing it. And as we know from a former episode with Mike down below, Mike doesn't like exercise. So we're not sure, and Tom liked that at that point. I remember that Mike, from one who is not going to be able to fulfill that being a physical therapist and really likes to sweat anymore, how does any of this fit with you, with a young son, young dad, back at home, still involved in your career, full-fledged, of kind of, what do you want to be able to continue to do, show your family, but there may be moments when there's got to be with patients that you look at and say, I wonder how they're going to get through this.
Yeah, that's a good point. At this point in my life, I feel like it's almost a blur because it seems to fly by so much. Mm-hmm. But, having this conversation allows me to reflect, like maybe I really, I don't per se have a bucket list, right now, but it's making me realize to soak in the present better.
Right.
And maybe along in my life, I can really look back at what I've done and, already almost have a bucket list, I like your hat. But, just almost look back at that list one day and be like, wow, I did accomplish a lot throughout my life. And then, dealing with, I do work a lot with the elderly with my job. And
now, wait a minute, are you doing some sort of parallel here between, you use okay, what? Okay, be careful now. We're not going to edit, no one to edit this now, pal.
Let's put it this way. I work with a lot of people that have much more experience than me.
Oh, good. Good.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
very
Okay.
good. Very good.
But I do like, what Leo had mentioned about the, maintaining and trying to live your life, doing the things that you love as long as you can. And that's kind of
Whoop.
choice and what I do every day.
Yeah, I think that was the bandwidth. Yep.
Yeah. So doing what I do every day, working with people with more experience than me.
Good.
Good. It does allow me to reflect and then actually per se help people with their bucket list indirectly. Yeah, maybe their bucket list isn't, hey, working with Mike today in physical therapy, but maybe, hey, let's get my knee better to be able to climb a mountain and whatnot.
Right. Or, that whole thing of what are they going to return to pre-op, from a pre-op, what is the level of functioning thereafter, like myself. a bucket list item that I have is how can I make Leo Sandy laugh? So, it takes, come on there, guy, come on. Yeah, he's taking a Tuesday. So they certainly can be very nuanced at this point, but, you get to this point and people often you'll bring up a certain challenge. And of course they feel, and understandably, maybe at a loss or whatever, but jump right into solutions. Here's all you need to do. Or have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I found in terms of when I'm hitting this and it's mentioned to anybody that I need at the instruction of Coach Jim Sparks here, where he says, breathe, Tom, breathe, step back, get off the type A pedestal that you were on at one point, be patient, etc. So I need to do that every time that, and particularly now when, you tell people about something that said, oh my God, what about this? Well, have you tried this? Have you tried this? But, have you do this? But all, have you, so, oh, good. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Type thing. So I found that is also helps in terms of, okay, fine. Maybe I can develop the patience, virtue of patience that I never quite had before. And Jim, I'm just wondering too how you can help us, maybe if you're jumping off into the challenges of your life, whether or not you might also be letting us run for a couple more minutes before we close down as you head off into your next.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, sir. Very much appreciated. But Jim, if I may be able to ask you again, we're not going to deep dive because you're doing so much for us here, but Jim and I, as you may appreciate, we've met a number of years ago here. Jim was at the University of West Florida doing his MBA. I was involved in a volunteer program called the Executive Mentor Program and was fortunate, although I'm not one for fate or destiny, but somehow got Jim as the person I was going to quote mentor. And we developed a great relationship thereafter. And at which point, and Leo will need to identify this hat. If he doesn't, he needs to get off and see what that icon is on the hat. He needs to identify that and think who that may have been years ago as the name of my former.
Oh, Spencer.
Yeah, there he goes. All right, yes, my old Spencer, the lean, mean Spence machine. His business was called Spencer and Associates. But Jim, with all of that and some of our newer history over the last 5 or 6 years, I want to be able to thank Jim as kind of jumped in with a lot, and some of which very recently and daily hearing about my trials and tribulations a bit and jumping in with that. And I very much want to appreciate that. Jim, any thoughts or ideas or input whatsoever with some of these kind of revelations that some of us are giving about what do we do at different points in our life that we're confronted with the mountain, and what do we do from that with what we have up to that point in our life?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and the whole idea of a bucket list, I'm certainly familiar with it, but as we talked about, I was like, I really don't have one, as Mike said. But I think in my case, being a little, what'd you say, more experienced than Mike, a little older, it's not so much I just haven't thought about it. It's that, the only thing that I really have left to do is I have to get my certified wise guy degree from Tom. And then, I'm pretty much good. I'm pretty good after that. But just, one of the benefits of only taking one psychology class was the only thing I ever learned was the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so I really just, and being a bad student, I really just I can only remember one thing. So I thought about self-actualization. Right. And that's really all I've, as far as existential thought about the future was where I focused is, how do I live a life? And then how do you help other people live a life that helps them be who they can be? And that's really all I've wanted to achieve in this life. And I think I've done the best I can. So as we all go through this, I think it's a place to focus.
Well, I think I'm assuming we're all hearing that with our different stages and challenges and who we have in our lives, our village, whoever that may be, legal or otherwise, that kind of taps into some of that where, because we've done a number of different things. You mentioned about helping. That certainly can tend to be a major piece for any of us, and I think online of how we've done that, whether it's through family, we help friends, we help colleagues, we help community, and maybe even some ways that may be a quote unquote message or moment, teachable moment for our people who like us on Men Talking Shop. But with that, we're always talking about this idea of the tool bag. And I am a frequent flyer down at Ace Hardware here in Pensacola down the street. Ace is the place. So with that, that's my tool bag. I have about 15 of them. And Leo likes this because they're all compartmentalized. Each one of them is a different functionality and tool. And I knew Leo from years ago, and I hope he's going to laugh at this, but Leo had this thing. He had a briefcase for all the compartments of his life where you go into his closet. Here was the one for teaching. Here was the one for testing. Here was the one. Is that close to?
Or each one for a different course I taught.
Yeah.
A little label on it.
And,
Take the wrong one to class.
right. And so he had, okay, today is this, and not that, not our close friend Leo has a certain degree of rigid by way of that whatsoever. But anyways, so with that, just as a little, here is, what is the toolbox of life? I did a consultation in Taiwan in 2012 where I was asked to come and be a keynote speaker to a conference about 300 people, and was told that the 300 people are all going to probably be speaking Mandarin Chinese with a dialect for Taiwan. And what will happen is that I'll speak, it will be translated to this person in the front row, it will go to the audience, see their reaction, and move on. So I'm trying to not be too glib, but I would look at the guy, he tells it, wait a couple of seconds like an auditory delay, see if the audience laughs. Anyways, so I was doing that and then had this elite from this audience of 20 people where I was told that most of them were going to be able to be bilingual English. I'll be fine. I go in the first day, pull up my slides, begin, and about 2 of the 20 spoke English. Yeah, okay. Okay. And I'm thinking, okay, I got 4 days with these people. What am I gonna do? Okay. And then did the Murphy shuffle and was able to grab somebody that was the bilingual to stand next to me, be the translator, go through this thing, including, and I have videos of this, of doing group role play things where I'm talking, the interpreter is doing it with the role play type thing. Anyways, it worked out. But the first day of the class, I was mentioning, it happened to be on kind of a variation of management training around leadership. And at which point I mentioned this thing about the toolbox because it was such a big metaphor that people would use. The next day I come into the class, this toolbox is at everybody's desk. Okay, and where's the top here? And then here's the toolbox at everybody's desk. So I'm thinking, what the heck is this? So anyways, we can be taken figuratively, literally, whatever, but then try to use that of each one of the pieces in the training to it. So at this point, what is our toolbox? What is the types of toolboxes for our folks and our people out there that are listening? Family, faith, and friends, that's fine. But what else is there as we individually tackle this for our significant others that are going through this with us and the general community? And I'm going to throw it out. Anybody that wants to jump in, go for it. Leo, Duke, Tom?
No, I forgot. I wanted to mention that once I took the wrong bag to class
Yeah.
and I had no idea what to do, but I winged it and it was best class I ever taught.
Okay. There's a message about winging it and coming from somebody that's not a winger. Let me just say, I've had some association with Leo since March of 1977, Lowell, Massachusetts, and he's not a winger. Okay, so he says it, he did it, he tried it, he was spontaneous, broke out of the box. Tommy, anything in terms of you're looking at toolbox that you'd jump into at this point?
Yeah, Tom, I think one of the tools is resourcefulness, and I think you showed it in that Taiwan situation. I fear that if I were in it, I might have just frozen or not. But you right away you solved it. You took care of it.
Well, I froze. There was, I got,
Okay.
I got my first slide. I had 250 slides for the week. It was a certification course to become a formal coach internationally. I start to do a little bit of talk and everybody's looking at each other. I ask a question, nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, okay. And I was being paid pretty well, and I was told that this was an elite group, education, government, and with Taiwan, again, this is 10 years ago, there was a lot of censorship and some of my stuff was censored out. Not the jokes, but some of my material, anything that talked about democracy was taken out. Yeah, so this was, I was dancing. But I needed not to create a political incident at the same time. So anyways, with that, it was, okay, what have I got in front of me? Who's here? Who's the type thing? Let's give a shot at this. Let's try this, boom, type thing. And fortunately, it did. Mike, have you ever had to dance much?
Oh, I think every day I feel like I
You're a father. You better be able to dance, pal.
Yeah. Well, in the opposite, what helps me though is truly sleeping something off. So obviously in the moment when you have to think on your feet, you can't go take a 5-hour power nap and then wake up. But what I've in situations where I do have a rough moment or a rough patch, I really do think for me personally, sleeping, having one night of sleep always helps me to regain my thought, because I do tend to catastrophize when I am in a situation, and so sleeping it off, regathering my thoughts, looking at, hey, what is the worst thing that could come out of this, and once I wrap my mind around that, that's when it helps me, to get out of that, that catastrophize phase, So truly just taking my time, sleeping it off, and then, taking my time with it is what helps me get through instances if I have the time.
Well, you better watch yourself. Leo, I think somebody just took over your role. Old Mike there got pretty psychological throughout. Catastrophize, over dramatization, we better watch that the kid here is taking over our role is old psychologist and licensed mental health counselors here a bit. Mike, you happen to bring up, I think, the best point of today in that how easy it is to be able for people to, quote unquote, catastrophize when they get news or are confronted with the mountains or a challenge that is a mountain for them at that given point in time. And I will say that pretty much occurred for me. Mm-hmm. And my wife, licensed clinical psychologist, used to be licensed in 3 states. We were both hit pretty hard. And I'm still dealing with that, Mike. Mm-hmm. In the last meeting with the ENT surgeon last week, I was almost going to shake her, this doc, a bit, that you need to listen to me. That as we jump into this major surgery, where my voice and singing could be affected. You need to really hear me, Doc. And she says to me, well, Mr. Murphy, you just need to think happy thoughts.
Yeah, right.
And, well, Tommy, thanks. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting there in her chair and thinking, thank you very much, but I know we're under managed care. We don't have the time, energy, focus to be able to go an inch below that. But that's not going to be particularly, well, you just need to have more happy thoughts, Mr. Murphy. And I'm like, okay, well, thank you very much. And
Yeah.
that's like somebody with a panic disorder. You say, hey, just don't worry about it. No,
Right.
there's a touch more to it. I think Leo will say this, with all of the quote unquote, I'll use the old term juvenile delinquents that Leo used to work with for many decades, and he classified himself as one back in the early days, that you just don't say, well, don't do that, don't act bad. I mean, okay. So anyways, with that, I'm digging through some of this. What is my toolbox? What can I rely on? I don't have all the total of the family, faith, the friends that I can immediately jump into. So I look to, here it is. Here's Jim, here's Leo, here's Tom, here's you. And because I'm thinking, okay, I was a pretty good dancer. Who is my village? How do I create or recreate my village to help tap into some of that old me where I can pull this off? And that's what's happening as we speak, as of this moment in time. So with that, I'm wondering can we give any particular major closing thoughts, ideas, suggestions, recommendations, good jokes that we won't have to edit about today of what we've tried to do?
Before we do, Tom, could I invite you to discuss two things while I transition from this view to another view I'm going to switch to my phone here, but we're talking about things that, basically give meaning to today and tomorrow. Were there any particular little things that involve tools that you would like to share about? And also, I don't know if you felt compelled to click on the original sound on and maybe hum a bar or two. But with that, I just wanted to put that out there before we got too far down the wrap up road.
What Jim is referring to is that there is some strong suggestion that my surgery involving my tongue cancer is I'm going to be cut from ear to throat to take out all lymph nodes, and going in through the throat to take out a significant section of my tongue. There is strong possibilities of affecting speech and singing from there on. I'll be doing speech therapy and a variety of whatever I can do to whatever. So Jim and I we're practicing a bit, and with singing is a sidelight, not a formal bucket list, but I'm hearing birds. I'm not sure, is that in the parking lot with Mike? I'm not sure. Anyways, is part of this quote unquote bucket list. And this past year of being introduced to YouTube, I was bouncing around a bit on YouTube, thought I'll look up this one, look up that one. I ended up looking up a rock star of the 1967-70 period of time. The group broke up, he went on individual, never achieved the level of success. I was attached to him / his group because of his vocal ability. I say to the world, maybe don't listen too much to the words of those songs, of his songs at the time, although we may be sued. But what I'm saying is that vocally, he was, to me, because I was always attached vocally from a kid, kind of the old classic Irish tenor from in church and chorus to dinner theater and stuff years later to bars, whether they wanted to hear it or not, to whatever, weddings. But so I looked up this guy and started following him on YouTube. He is approaching 80. He is doing still touring. June 4th, he's going to be in Biloxi, believe it or not, but does podcasts like ours here. And Jim tracked him down and presented the idea of would he come on an MTS episode with us. We have not got a request other than from his agent and people. If I went to his concert in Biloxi, he would agree to meet me backstage. I don't know if I can pull that off. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that. But anyways, with that, Jim and I have been playing around. Some of you may or may not know, one of my little side hobbies is I love to sing. And we're trying to put together a video that I've been thinking about for a couple of years that I may or may not have shared, but if it doesn't come together, fine. But part of it, and what Jim is making reference to, we're starting to do recordings, and at which point at least have on some database in the universe, cloud or hard drive, of where me being able to sing before I go into surgery. So that's a little touch of what Jim is saying in his reference, although I haven't done any warm-up or practice this morning, So I just had contact with a guy that I knew in 1974 in Massachusetts, who's a professional singer, was a tremendous singer. He's now just retired at 65-ish, maybe a little bit older, and is back into community theater. And he sent me his video of a community show that he did of Oklahoma in 1976. And so, and one of the famous songs of that was, and that this is before Mike and Jim along those lines, but there's a bright golden haze in the meadow. There's a bright golden haze in the meadow. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it looks like it's growing clear up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I've got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way. Oh, what a beautiful day. So.
That's great, Tom. What a great voice. Wow. Yeah. An Irish tenor, I think. Right?
Yeah, thank you. And that was my role play approximation of Gordon McRae doing the role, if you look it up, back in 1956. So anyways, with that, Jim, thank you, sir. I very much appreciate that. And any other last thoughts, ideas, suggestions going forward of what we want to leave on this session today?
I'd just like to make go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I would like to leave with Nietzsche's words. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
I would like to just comment, Jim, the sound is so much better in the video. You tinkered, right? Where's Jim?
Here he is.
Yeah, we did tinker.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. That's it.
Mike?
Just appreciate you having me on again, and it's always nice to hear, everybody's thoughts, and I definitely learn a lot from these sessions as well. Oh, and one other thing, when a coach tells a pitcher, "Hey, just throw strikes,"
Right.
Well, thanks, coach. What do you think I'm trying to do out here? So to bring a little baseball into it.
Right.
Good point. Okay, thanks.
Right. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Right to the panic disorder. Just don't worry about it. That type thing. Listen, just throw strikes. So I like it.
Right.
Thank you, Mike. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Coach.
that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Yeah, I'm out here trying to throw balls. Yeah.
yeah. Right. I'm trying to ruin my life and everyone else. And I'd love to be a stand-up embarrassment as I do that. I want to show this video to my son of me, walking 12 people. So anyways, with that in mind, thank you, Mike and Tom and Jim and Leo. We pulled this together under pretty short notice and really appreciate it. And I'll keep in touch. And my Meg will be probably the point guard and coach. Mike, you'll like this. When my wife said to me, now listen, Murph, I'm going to take over when you have surgery. I'm going to be the coach of the household. Okay. She says, to do that though, quote, you need to take direction.
Okay.
So at this point, which was never an easy virtue of mine to be sure. So she is going to be the coach of the Murphy Welch team household here. And I'll make sure you have her telephone number, email, etc. She may be sending out group broadcasts with the help of Jim to kind of keep people up to speed. Don't know when the surgery is, but they're supposed to let me know today or tomorrow, which could be in the next 2 weeks. Okay, folks, well, listen, thank you very